Not all junctions are semiconductor junctions. We've talked a lot about them. You either have a junction formed within a common piece of semiconductor or two different pieces of semiconductor in case of the heterojunction. But other things can happen. You can have a metal semiconductor junction called a Schottky junction. So a Schottky barrier is the potential barrier that forms for electrons to jump over, and a Schottky diode is the resulting device that comes from that. So this junction type has a diode behavior to it. It looks like a diode, acts like a diode, but it's not made from two semiconductors. It's made from a metal semiconductor junction. And so we need to characterize that with the band diagram, and so we're going to do that. Here's the circuit symbol for a Schottky diode. It is a special product. If you were to make one and make a cross-sectional view of a fabricated Schottky diode, it would look something like this. I've removed a lot of details just to leave a few salient points for us to talk about here. This is backside metallization. Blue is the metal that is in this block right here. So you have a semiconducting substrate. On top of that substrate, first as you fabricate this, you grow an epitaxial layer of more of the material, epitaxial layer. This is epitaxially grown. It'll have the same doping type as the substrate because the dopants diffuse into it. And then on top of that is a metal layer, the Schottky barrier metal. The whole device is otherwise covered in dielectric, just insulating silicon dioxide for passivation. It isolates one contact from the next one. This is a cross-section of it, and you get a Schottky diode out of it. Schottky diodes can be compared and contrasted with PN diodes. They're faster, they have a lower turn-on voltage, that is the voltage that makes the high current start coming out, and they're actually much more ideal. Their ideality factors are much closer to 1 than for PN junctions. And the reason why is because you have metal semiconductor, and so there are no electron hole pairs crashing into each other at the junction, and it's that recombination of electron hole pairs that cause the deviation from ideality in the first place. So you don't have that. So you have a more ideal diode with the Schottky barriers. Let's look at the energy diagram of a metal, which is simpler than for a semiconductor, because with a metal all you have is the Fermi energy, and all of the electrons are filled up state level energy levels up to the Fermi energy. And so you have the Fermi sea, as it's called, of electrons. The electrons are up to that level, and then from the Fermi energy to what's called the vacuum level is the work function of the metal. The vacuum level is the energy that one of these electrons would have if it were to escape the metal. So if it had just enough kinetic energy to get out of the metal, it has to overcome a potential barrier, the work function, and it has just enough energy to overcome that so that when it does get out here, it has no kinetic energy. That energy level is the vacuum level. So that's the difference between the Fermi level and the vacuum level. It's the work function, which we're going to take in volts. It's actually, you've seen it in electron volts as an energy, but we'll take it in volts. That is, forget about the E and EV, and you just have volts. Some tabulated values for various metals. They're all around 5 eV. They get a little bit different. You'll find a couple of 3 or 6. I think chromium is low. And for the most part, they're all around 5 electron volts. Now let's look at a semiconductor. And I'm saying in isolation, that is, this is the band diagram of a piece of metal over here and a semiconductor over here. They haven't been brought together yet. And you have your valence band, your conduction band, your Fermi energy in between. We still have a work function. Energy difference between the Fermi energy and the vacuum level is the work function. But now we have something that's a little bit more relevant for semiconductors, and that's the electron affinity, which is the energy difference between the conduction band edge and the vacuum energy. And that will take to be in just an energy in electron volts, as opposed to work function, which is Q times volts. Okay, here are a couple of useful values then. Silicon and silicon dioxide. And the reason why I'm giving these two is one's a semiconductor and one's an insulator. Electron affinity in our context really only has any relevance for materials that have an energy gap, a band gap, because it's the difference between the conduction band edge and the vacuum energy. And so you need to have a band gap to have a conduction band. And so it's the energy difference, that energy difference. For metal, there's no band gap, so all that really matters is the work function. At least for the uses that we make of these quantities, that's what matters. So we'll talk about the electron affinity for insulators and semiconductors. What we aren't so likely to find useful is the work function for a semiconductor. It's the difference between the Fermi energy and the vacuum level. But the problem with the semiconductor is the Fermi energy depends on doping. It keeps moving as the impurity levels change. And so you're not going to look up in a handbook what's the Fermi energy for this particular piece of semiconductor that has this particular doping level. It's a variable. It's a function of it. What we do tend to talk about with semiconductors is the electron affinity. And if you want to know the work function, you have to add the difference between E sub C and E sub F, which you get from equation 1.8.5. So now we make a junction. We bring the metal and the N-type semiconductor, we could do a P-type as well, and just bring them right up to each other and let them come into contact. Let's look at the quantities. For the metal, you've got a work function, Fermi energy to the vacuum level, but now there's band bending in the semiconductor. Remember, whenever a semiconductor is in contact with something, there's band bending. We've only talked about two semiconductors, one P, one N-type, contacting each other, but no matter what, if there's work function, there's bending. When the semiconductor comes into contact with the metal, the bands bend. How do they bend? For an N-type, they bend up. For P-type, they'll bend down. The electron affinity is still the difference between the vacuum level and the conduction band edge. But the vacuum level needs to be continuous. So the vacuum level in the N-type will be the exact same value in the N-type and the metal at the junction. The electron affinity locates the conduction band edge. But then the conduction band edge bends down. Since the vacuum level and the conduction band edge are just different by the electron affinity, the vacuum level has to bend down with it. And so the vacuum energy bends down too with the exact same curvature as the conduction band. So that's the bending that happens. Other thing you'll recognize then is the built-in potential that results. I should be using a small lowercase b for that, I think. But the BI, built-in potential, is the difference between the conduction band edge at the junction and what it is in the bulk, deep, far away from the junction. But now I'm going to introduce another quantity, and that's the Schottky barrier height, phi sub bn. So this b and that b have completely different meaning. That's why this should be a lowercase. This is the BI for built-in, and this is just B for barrier. So this is the Schottky barrier for a type N semiconductor. If this were a P-type, that letter would be a P. You can look up both types. The Schottky barrier height for electrons in an N-type and electrons in a P-type. I should say you can compute both types. You can look them up for raw materials. Physically, the meaning of Schottky barrier height is if I have an electron in the metal and I want to get it into the semiconductor, the Schottky barrier height is the potential it has to overcome. And for gold on silicon, here it is for N-type and P-type silicon, and for titanium on silicon, there it is. I also have silicides, titanium silicide, palladium silicide. Checked out these tables for more values, but the reason for silicides is they're often used. If you have silicon and you grow metal on it, going to form a silicide layer in between. And so you get these semiconductor silicide interfaces all the time. And so we'll need a tabulation. Let's get some equations out of this band diagram. See if you can spot this one. So the work function in the metal, and the subscript M means metal. And, I didn't mention that on the previous slide. Let me jump back. Subscript M means metal. The subscript SC means semiconductor. Sorry about not mentioning that. The work function in the metal is the electron affinity of the semiconductor plus the Schottky barrier height. Does you see that? Okay, so that's an equation that comes right out of the band diagram. There's another useful equation that comes out of the band diagram having to do with the built-in potential relating to the Schottky barrier. The Schottky barrier potential is the built-in potential plus this difference between the Fermi energy and the conduction band energy in the bulk that is far away from the junction. That comes from the band diagram. Now this is not a convenient thing to know, the conduction band edge minus the Fermi energy in the bulk, but we have equation 185 to tell us what that is. So replace this EC minus EF with equation 185. So put a circle around it and just save it. That and I think we're also going to use that top one at some point, and not today, but in this lecture, but it will come up. Those are two really important keepers there, those two expressions. So hang on to them, especially the one on the bottom there. We're about to use it. Before we do an example, one other thing is what happens when you bias a Schottky barrier. If you don't bias it, you have a depletion width, but that depletion, just like with the PN junction, there's always a depletion layer. If you reverse bias it, that depletion layer grows, just like a PN junction. If you forward bias it, the depletion layer shrinks, just like a PN junction. And you're forward biased when you put negative voltage on the N-type, and you're reverse biased when you put positive voltage on it. So here we have a reverse biased Schottky barrier diode. The important thing I want to point out is that the depletion layer is entirely in the semiconductor. You don't see it in the metal. Only the semiconductor becomes depleted. Only the semiconductor has dopants in order to form a space charge region. But another way to remind yourself that you don't get depletion in the metal is just to think about the expression for the depletion lengths. They have carrier density in the denominator. And for metal, the carrier density is orders of magnitude larger than it is for semiconductors. So the depletion width would be negligible anyway, less than a monolayer. So that's why we consider the depletion layer to be entirely in the semiconductor with the width of delta sub depletion. We derived this expression, and now we're going to make some use of it. And we can almost calculate it with the kinds of things we know. Let's look at what we know. If we know the voltage, you said it. If you fabricated the device, you know how much you doped it to. You know the dielectric constant of the material. You even know the cross-sectional area of the junction. We almost know enough to calculate the depletion width, except for one thing. We know the voltage we just set. We know how heavily we doped it, but we don't know the built-in potential. So we need a way to get the built-in potential. That's going to require some measurement. What do we measure? You can't just take a multimeter and stick it across the diode and measure a built-in potential. How do you determine it? You determine it by measuring the capacitance of this junction. Because capacitance has depletion width in it. This is the expression here. It's your standard epsilon A over D. That's what this is a parallel plate capacitance expression, where A is the area of the junction, thickness is the depletion width. If you take this expression for depletion width and insert it in there, then you can calculate the built-in potential. We'll actually determine the built-in potential graphically, so calculate it or deduce it from a graph. Either way, you can get a data set that looks like this. In chapter 5, I think it's on page 171, you'll actually see a little box that describes how capacitance is measured. I mean, you did an experiment maybe in general physics where you measured capacitance, and that's why we do that experiment. We do it just for this, so you know how capacitance is measured by varying the frequency. Determine the capacitance of the junction at different bias voltages. Capacitance depends on depletion width. Depletion width depends on voltage. So you have a voltage-dependent capacitor. Keep that in mind. You're used to capacitors that don't depend on voltage, right? C is Q over V, and it's a constant. You change the voltage, you don't change the capacitance. Well, it's not the case in semiconductor junctions. So the capacitance changes with the voltage. And you make a graph of not capacitance versus voltage, but look at the structure here, 1 over c squared. What I need you to do is pause the video right now. Take this expression for the depletion width, take this parallel plate capacitor expression, and get an expression for 1 over c squared versus voltage, and confirm, yeah, it'll be a straight line with this slope. Can you do that right now? All right, so you've paused. You confirm that, yeah, you have a straight line with that slope and that y-intercept. If you do a measurement of capacitance versus voltage, you can determine the built-in potential. All right, let's do an example. If you know the area of the junction, quite frequently we don't, and we just talk about capacitance per unit area, but you're given an area, you're given a doping level 10 to the 16th. Let's find the capacitance. We had that expression, so let's go ahead and write it down. 1 over the capacitance squared is that, and we know almost everything in there. We know the doping density, 10 to the 16th. We know the dielectric constant if it's silicon, so we can use the number for that. We know the area it's given, and we know the fundamental charge. We don't know the built-in voltage. Do we know the voltage? V, big V. Here's the hint, unbiased. Big V is 0. Okay, so big V 0. But we still need to find the built-in potential. And that's why I asked you to circle that equation before. Because now we're going to use it from 2 slides back. You can get the built-in potential because we can look up the Schottky barrier height for platinum on silicon n-doped. And we can, you can look up, n sub C. And we're given the doping level, you get the built-in potential. Plug in these numbers. You look this up in table 4-4, you find out it's 0.9 EV is what Q times. Table 4-4 gives you Q times the barrier height if you just put it in the electron volt. So we find out that Q times the built-in potential is 0.69 electron volt. And this is where I do something that I hope by now you're comfortable with. If you have Q times the potential in electron volts, that means the potential is just the same number, but volts. Cancel the Q and the E. The built-in potential is 0.69 volts, which then we can plug into this expression along with 0 for volts and calculate the capacitance. So you do that. It's silicon, so epsilon sub S, you put 12 times epsilon. You get a value for capacitance, 0.35 picofarads. 0.35 times 10 minus 12 farads. There's the capacitance of that junction. Don't underestimate the importance of capacitance in semiconductor junctions. It's going to come up repeatedly. And so every time you have a chance to read about capacitance in our textbook, read it. Read it twice. It's actually very important. And if we get into the MOSFET is a big giant capacitor. Well, it's a little capacitor. But the MOSFET is a capacitor. And capacitance is always there and always needs to be known. So we'll stop with that, but take this subject as seriously as you can. That is capacitance.